items 1 through 8. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda or a request to remove anything?
You know what? I'm gonna have you remove 8 because I cannot vote on that.
Okay,
I
8.
did not have time to look them over.
Okay.
I will remove that.
Is there a motion to approve items 1 through 7?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Call for the vote.
Lively,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
Item 8, is there any further discussion?
The only question is this just like the routine, regular update where you ensure all the verbiage is correct, updated any standards of practice that needed to be updated?
Correct. And our SRA, which is a security risk assessment, that's for vulnerability of breaches for data security. So we did that in a HIPAA walkthrough with the SAFER guidelines for 2024. And then we did also a hazard vulnerability analysis for us, a facility for disaster preparedness. So those are the only big things that we have to do every year. The rest of them were just verbiage and wording.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve 8?
I would make a motion to approve number 8.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call for the vote.
Lively,
I will abstain from this one.
Ford,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
Is there any remarks or inquiries by the audience not pertaining to anything on the agenda? Hearing none, financial report.
Okay. I've got both November and December board packets. I'm just gonna kind of go over both at the same time here. Okay. Average daily census for November was 7.4. December was 9.06. December ended with about 1 day less than the 2024 year-to-date average. Acute payer mix for Medicare and Medicare managed care for November was 78%, and December was 81%. Year-to-date swing bed payer mix was 88% for Medicare and 11% for Medicare managed care. Operating margin was a loss of $115,000 for November and was $343,000 for December. The year-to-date monthly average was ending at a loss of $56,000 per month. The net patient revenue was $1.36 million for the month of November and $1.82 million for the month of December. 340B revenue was $16,000 in November and $11,000 in December. The revenue for all of 2024 ended at $191,000. Operating expenses were at $1.5 million for both November and December, which is up $32,000 from the year-to-date monthly average. Patient days for November were at 222, and December was 281, both of which were down compared to the year-to-date monthly average of 309. Cash receipts for November were at $771,000, and December were at $889,000. Cash disbursements were at $1.37 million for November and $1.03 million for December. Cash balance at the end of November was $545,000, which is 10.9 days of cash on hand, and December was $418,000, which is 8.7 days of cash on hand. For the clinic, the average visits per day were 6.63 for November and 6.73 for December. Revenue for the clinic ended at $336,000. Operating expenses were at $789,000, resulting in a net loss of $453,000 for the year. Any questions, concerns?
Oh, I think there's concerns, yeah.
Why such a high loss?
So that's right in line for the clinic for the last 4 years.
So what is the value of keeping the rural clinic? I mean, I know that you guys are doing a lot of work to bring doctors in, and that's bringing up patient census average per day. Of course, that's a very slow process. And I know that it's been asked before, at what point do you say enough's enough? because it's,
This is actually on another agenda item that we're gonna discuss a little bit more. We are taking a very hard look at the RXC and the amount of money that it is losing currently. Like I said, whether it's continuing the RXC at that location or moving it to a different location.
that was another question, is could we not maybe utilize some exam rooms and still get money out of the providers that you're bringing in, but cut down on some of the cost? Because there's available rooms in other locations, perhaps, that could be turned
It's-
easily into a clinic.
It's starting to be looked at, yes.
Okay.
And you
Cohesive
think
has
about it
started
too,
to-
some of these numbers may be because people can't get in next door, and they're sick, they can walk down, or we might not even have this many, this 6 point whatever of them up.
Well, I understand,
Day.
I'm not sure how many people see that the one clinic is closed and immediately go next door. They might like call and hear that that one's closed and then call. I don't know that it would make a great deal of difference if you were gonna change providers because you're ill, if you went here or,
Well, and I don't see it making a difference if you're gonna change facility places. Because let's just face it, right here is in the heart of town, and if you're gonna move out, back out here where there's nothing else out there, I mean, that's a,
We are just looking at all possibilities to decrease the losses that we're sustaining every month, that the city of
Cut
Macon is
down some of
sustaining.
your costs,
Uh.
especially, I mean, if you use the same providers some hours of the day.
Yeah,
well, and the other facilities and buildings are already operating, you're already paying that light bill, you're already utilizing the staff that's there.
but surely to God, then light bill's not what's causing this.
No, I'm not, I'm just saying that all of those things, if you
Or
factor them
rent.
in,
Right.
it's already on out there, it's already being utilized out there, it's already being paid out there versus paying for a second location that's not utilizing or making any revenue, is my only point of having empty rooms out there or the potential for rooms out there that could be utilized for that. That was my point.
Is there anything that's not clinic-related? Because as Kelly pointed out, that's item 17.
Okay.
So anything else that's not clinic-related that relates to the financial report that's worth discussing?
Not from me.
All right, item 10 was also discussed along with the November report. So in item 11, this is the agreement for provision and maintenance of the durable medical equipment between Tecumseh and Cohesive. This was the one that was tabled from, I believe it was November.
November. And y'all were provided, should have been provided the three different companies that we currently also use, and that was US Med-Equip, CMS Medical, and then the Tecumseh's numbers that should have been forwarded to y'all also with their different, what they charge for different processes. So if you look at that, they're right in line, and actually the only thing is Tecumseh does offer all of them in one. But again, this is not a single agreement that we have to use Tecumseh. It's not, we can use US Med-Equip, whoever we need to use at that time.
It's allow us to use them in addition to.
Yep, it's allow us to use in addition to who we already have.
And Tecumseh is the one that Cohesive.
Cohesive owns, yes.
And there, but there's still not a disclosure statement.
I'll put it in the agenda item. Yep.
Okay.
In
Yep.
number 11, it says.
Yep.
Okay. I didn't see it on the deal, I mean, it's on there, but
Yes, it's not in the agreement. You are correct. They just wanted to put it in there.
I don't have any questions on that. I don't know if you guys do.
Does anybody want to take any action on this one? Either to approve the agreement or no action? No further discussion? So no action on number 11.
Hang on, I'm
Okay.
still looking at something. That's why I didn't,
I didn't say anything, I thought they were still.
yeah, there was something in here I was looking for.
Just I can only sit in silence and stare at people for so long.
Well,
Hold my knees.
Sure.
You want some Jeopardy music?
Need something. That might be a good idea. Give you 30 seconds.
Maybe I'm missing it. And I very well could be, but I didn't see it the first time I read it and I went through. I don't see where that's, like, it doesn't say that it's exclusive or it does say it's exclusive. It's
It
just
does not say
understood.
it's exclusivity. There's no exclusivity clause that says we have to use them or do not, we can use others. We already do have other DME companies currently that we use.
What's the benefit of this versus already having the others in place?
The benefit of this is currently with, say, KCI, they're a wound vac company that we have an agreement with already. They're right around $66 a day to rent their equipment. This one's $40. So it's a little bit cheaper to go with the ones Tecumseh have compared to KCI. But if the patient comes with KCI stuff already in place from OU, we can keep that by having a KCI agreement also. It just gives us multiple avenues to be able to save money, spread the cost savings to our patients. Mhm.
So it allows for more availability of equipment, but then you're not necessarily saying that if they don't come with KCI from OU to us, then you would automatically use Tecumseh, or you could still,
We can still switch back and forth. Yeah, if they came with KCI, we can leave them on KCI.
but if they didn't,
Then
and
we
they
could put
just
them
come
on,
in.
we can put them on, the one Tecumseh has. This is just wound vacs, or we can do a KCI, depending on what the wound care doctor recommends, what brand they want to stick with. We have a wound care doctor that comes out every week for that would determine, I want this or this one. And that's still driven.
So the doctor, it would be doctor-driven, not,
Yep, not facility-driven, provider-driven. And then if people come in with wounds, we determine on which beds we want to put them on. There's multiple different levels of air loss beds that you can have.
I'd make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Call for the vote.
Sorry. Lively,
No, I don't know enough about it.
Ford,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
Item 12, discussion possible action with regard to the 2025 budget, calendar year budget.
Okay, I'm gonna go over our assumptions and then just the high level of the cash basis. So we're assuming that we know that we're gonna have one less calendar day and one less business day than in 2024 because it was a leap year. We are budgeting the average daily census to be 10.5 versus the current year 10.2. We haven't heard yet for 2025 what the shop increase could be, so I'm not sure about that one yet. We're budgeting the same for ER visits and other visits. We're doing a 26% increase for RHC visits, which then rolls down to 340B, so we're also doing an increase for revenue and expenses for them as well. And we have eliminated ERS loan interest expense. That's resulted in a 1% increase in net revenue for 2025. Now for the cash basis spreadsheet. Everything is the same stat-wise, the days in the month, business days, holidays. We've got the one business day again, we already talked about. There's the RHC clinic, 26% increase. We're doing an increase of $248,000 for operating revenue. So for the full year of 2025, it's gonna be 16.5 million. We're budgeting for operating expenses to be at 16.1 million, which is a decrease of 717,000 from last year. And that is resulting in an EBITDA of 324,000 for the year. So there's a zero net income, net loss because of the cash basis. So the difference in between the cash versus the accrual basis is that the management fees wouldn't get paid to make it to zero. So, any other questions?
No, run that last statement again.
So the difference in between a cash basis budget and an accrual-based budget is, accrual-based is how we do the accounting right now, so you have a loss for the year. But when you do a cash-based budget, you can't have a negative
Sure.
bottom line. So that means that something has to be taken out of the expenses so that it only hits zero. So it's those management fees for Cohesive that wouldn't get paid to the expense line, so that it actually just makes a zero. Which is why you see the net change in assets of the 1.19 million on the bottom. Because the current year annualized is on the accrual basis, and then the budget is on a cash base.
Where's the clinic? Where's it represented in here?
So it's built
It was
into this
from-
one. So it's all, it's not separated.
She was talking about the estimate, if that's
Oh,
Like the
okay,
clinic
yeah.
visits are separated, but the clinic revenue and clinic expenses are just in it.
And did you say you're assuming an increase in the clinic visits?
Yes, of 26%.
And the rest of the hospital, visits are staying the same?
Yes.
Where'd you come up with the 26%?
We talked about Dr. Sanda.
And how his numbers have increased
Right.
for him since he's been here. And when we took that, took an increase, looking at the daily visits compared to when he's here, the increase is right around 25 to 27%. So we went with a 26% patient visit increase just by having him here. It's 2 days a month, or it's 4 days a month that he's in our clinic.
Did his increase because the other guy was not here a lot?
For the month of December and January, yes, but his,
Did that factor into this?
but his
Okay.
December numbers went up before he left, and his January numbers are staying right there after the other providers back. And it is also increased because if y'all remember, we didn't have all insurance payers with him, and we do now, so he can see more patients. So now he's credentialed with all insurance payers, so we don't have to worry about, the patient getting billed when he's over the amount, or going to the pharmacy and not getting their scripts filled at a covered level, because he's now insured with all of it.
Are we still not, if I called them tomorrow, would they tell me that I could not be seen
No, ma'am.
for a fact?
Mhm.
Okay. Because then that's changed, because that before Christmas, you call, I'm sorry, you're full, and then you drive by and there's not a single car down there.
Nope. No, ma'am, you won't be told that.
All the miles, so. We're just not in a position to not,
No, we don't disagree here. That's what we're talking about, y'all. We do not disagree.
this is the first budget we've had in forever and ever.
We've done one every year.
We had one last year.
Yeah, we've adopted a budget every year.
It's in rates.
Well, I know, that's what I'm telling you, every year we've never had one. I mean, they've never produced one. Right?
No, we've had one.
Yeah,
For-
the audit maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
We hadn't had the audit, but I
Yeah.
remember getting a budget last
We
year.
didn't, we didn't get a budget last year. We did have the audit.
We did, I mean, we adopted in December.
We didn't have the actual budget. Unless I missed something and I wasn't here, but
I felt like we approved a budget.
We did budget, because it was my first month here, and I was like, I'm gonna do it.
And we adopt the cash basis one.
Yes.
yeah.
Yep, that was a big conversation.
I mean, I think that's,
I remember having a discussion about it having to zero out,
Yes.
because I almost felt deja vu when we were having this conversation.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget as submitted.
I'll second it.
call for the vote.
Lively,
yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Webb,
Yes.
Item 13, discussing action to approve 340B Compliance Partners Consulting Agreement to provide yearly 340B mock audit, assist with policy and procedures review with recommendations based on the 340B program.
This is just a yearly upgrade for the 340B compliance partners that do what he just read. They assist with our policy and procedure review. They make sure our policies for 340B are staying in compliance with the 340B program. They did most of the time they do a virtual visit, site mock audit, but this year they came on site. Just so we kind of know the process of how if HRSA does come into Mangum, we know how to address them and how to work through it.
Is that why they went up $100?
Yeah,
Go on
no,
site?
travel. They actually broke down the travel. They sent me the stuff and I'm like, really? It was pretty cool. I was like, okay, your travel went up $100. We're gonna charge you more. Yes. And they do our chart audits from the clinic. They do 10 a month to make sure we're meeting the standards and make sure we're not in default of that.
I'd make a motion, we approve.
I will second.
Call for the vote.
Lively,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Webb,
Yes.
Item 14, discussion to terminate in action to terminate the 340B contract with Granite Drug.
So we have 2 agreements for 340B, Puckett's and Granite. Granite doesn't want to take generic 340B. At this time, it's not financial benefit for us or Granite to continue the agreement at this time until that changes. So this was a discussion that she wanted to pursue, the pharmacist at Granite. We just have to bring it to y'all since it is an agreement y'all approved to have it terminated.
Is there, could it just stay in effect and us just not utilize that part of the agreement?
According to 340B, no, we have to terminate her with PharmaForce, who's another company that refills the meds that were used, and us. So we have to send it to them and to PharmaForce and to Granite Drug.
Do you have any idea how many patients that's impacting, if any?
Very, very low, if any. Most of our patients go to Puckett's, of course, because it's in town.
I mean, if they don't want to do it, you really don't have much of a choice.
Yeah, I mean,
So
that's
I
where
will
they,
make
it's
a
where
motion that we approve
it's
it.
where the patient wants to get it filled. I mean, plain and simple.
Make a motion that we approve the termination of the 340B contract.
Is there a second? Call for the vote.
Lively,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Webb,
Yes.
Item 15, discussion possible action to approve the Mangum Family Clinic's Parklight Renewal Internet Service Agreement.
This is just to renew our yearly internet with the clinic. It hasn't changed in price, which kind of blew my mind. It's $88.63 a month.
I would suggest
I was
that
gonna
we,
ask if we could
we essentially
swap.
go to item number 17, discuss item 17,
Yeah,
then
that
come back
was-
to item 15.
This is gonna be my question, if we could do something different there.
If y'all want to, absolutely.
So that's what I would do, just take it out of order. So item number 17, because 16 also does with the clinic as well, but so 17, discussion possible action with regard to the operations of the Mangum Family Clinic.
Okay.
Again, this is just a discussion point that we are looking at all avenues for the clinic. Whether we close that location or we do something different with it, we move it to a different location. We just cohesive wanted y'all to know that we heard what y'all been saying and that we're taking a deep dive into what we can do to make that better. Whether it's different type of marketing, something to improve that clinic and improve the numbers. Everything currently we have tried isn't really providing the numbers we need, and we understand that. And for the town, for the hospital, for the city, we want to keep it. We want to keep the clinic if we can, but if it's at a point where it's not, then we'll have to address that. So that's all this discussion point was going to be about.
My thought is your biggest barrier is people have established
Mhm.
providers.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, I will wait.
Yeah.
Like, if I can't get in today,
Unless you got a real bad sore throat that you need to, you
I'll
know.
call Swift MD.
Yeah.
If that's, I mean, I'm just gonna be honest. I mean, that's what I would typically do. If it's something that I
Well,
could,
and a lot of the insurances do now pay
Yeah.
for the virtual
Yep.
providers.
I mean, that cost me
They have
0
contracts with
versus
different-
$30.
Yeah, they have contracts with different,
But I mean, I would rather see my doctor that I would typically see
Every day.
every day. And so I think that's one of your biggest barriers here.
I don't disagree.
Because we keep switching providers out there, and when you switch providers, you don't have that consistency, so people are scared to get attached to somebody that historically have left.
Yeah, in less than a year.
Yeah, and so I think that's your biggest problem, in my opinion.
It's certainly up there at the top.
Yeah.
At one point, we talked about looking at, the revenue that the hospital is receiving from referred, patients out there. And, you can really compare that to your loss.
Mhm.
And, I'm sure it's not gonna cover the whole loss, but,
No.
but it is probably.
Some.
Some. So there really is not a whole lot of relationship with those providers in the hospital. Am I hearing that? They strictly see patients in the clinic.
Yes,
and
correct. They strictly
Upstairs there, and they're not sending.
They send them to the hospital for lab and imaging and CTs and ultrasounds. That's about
Do
the
they,
length
do
of their.
you have, do you keep a record of when they do see someone in the clinic and end up sending them out there in that stay, which may or may not have, you
We
see what
don't-
I'm saying? Sending a emergency patient out
Emergency
there.
patient, we don't keep a record, but we can pull that absolutely, how many we have,
It
that
might
the
be
clinic has
interesting
referred.
to know.
And does it offset the cost of the loss?
No, I can answer
Is
that.
it anywhere close?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
No.
not.
No. Not at 6 patients.
I was gonna say, not
Not
with
at
those
6 and
numbers,
7
it couldn't
patients,
be.
no. You'd have to be seeing 18 to 25, and then it offset.
Which is what we talked about before, that.
That is our
number-
break-even point.
Yeah. I really do believe, if you're talking about this community, if you really want to establish, it's got to be that consistency.
We
Because, like I said,
understand that.
for me not to, if I were to go out there and try to develop that relationship, and then I find out 4 months later that I now have a new doctor, it's just gonna be frustrating. Because you almost feel like you gotta tell your story, especially if you're a chronic patient.
Yeah, over and over and over
Yeah.
again.
And that's why I said I would just use the Swift ND if I couldn't get into my doctor, because that person doesn't care who I am, and I don't care who they are. I'm gonna get what I need, and I'm just gonna go about, I'm just being honest
what you
about
mean.
it.
I know exactly what you mean.
So I don't think it's I see your advertisements
Mhm.
all the time. You guys are on, Tiger TV
Yep.
every single week.
We
It's
are.
down in there in the corner. I hear your advertisements for the clinic all the time. I don't think that's the problem.
Yeah, we're definitely still trying.
You're advertising. I hear you all the time. That's not your problem.
Are your providers open to other sources of generating revenue, like doing the, hydration clinics, the hormone replacement stuff?
The problem with that is, yes, they are. The problem we've ran into digging into that is you cannot bill it as an RHC clinic. It's gotta be outpatient, completely separate, different receptionists, everything's gotta be pulled out. That's what we've ran into so far. But yes, they are absolutely open to all. I've talked to Dr. Sanda, he's interested in the hormone therapy, but we ran into the reimbursement with the RHC. And
Of course,
he's-
that's like a cash thing, though.
Some of it is not.
But
Right,
you're-
but the vast majority of it
But
is.
you're
Yes.
gonna have to take away from the time,
From the
this
RHC.
cannot be reimbursed then, that they use,
Yeah.
on those cash visits.
Yeah, so.
Do you see, availability during the day, during the week of your ER provider to do some clinic-like visits? And is that still allowed in the regs?
That is, we don't like to do that because we don't like to take them out of the ER for emergency. We did do that previously, and what would happen is patients at the clinic would get really upset because they would have to leave to go take care of a critical patient in the ER, and they would be sitting there for 2 and 3 hours, and we would actually field more complaints when we did that. And that, but again, that was previously when I was here. We fielded a lot of complaints because I had to wait for 3 and 4 hours. My provider left. I didn't get my visits finished. They had to reschedule me. I took off work. We did hit a lot of
But
that.
at 7 patients a day,
I
you
don't-
were probably trying to slip a whole lot more than 7 a day in at that
Mhm.
point.
We were.
So. it
We
might-
absolutely were.
I'm just saying you might be able to absorb what you're doing right now within those already set costs.
Okay.
If you can still do it
Yeah.
in the same space, that's my question.
Yeah.
That,
Do you guys have any ideas or thoughts about how to
we're just starting to dig into it really deep on what we're looking at doing. Talking to different people to see, to see if the annex could even possibly be a clinic, per RHC regs, because you have to have specific regs just for the way your clinic is set up and what can go in through there. You can't have other outpatient services going through your RHC space. There's a lot of things that we'd have to look into, that we're gonna have to look into before we could say anything definite, this is what we're gonna do. We've just started that work. We just wanted to let y'all know we are looking at it because of the conversations the board's had about it for so many times.
So is your plan to either develop some type of plan moving forward?
Yep.
With some goals and timelines, or is your plan, or is your plan to say, we're not gonna be able to get to this break-even point either, I'll sort of explain like the pool, maybe
Mhm.
it's something we know it's gonna be a loss, it's always gonna be a loss, we're doing it just to at least put a benefit within the community, and I could maybe fight that a little more than, because sometimes we have to do things just because it's what's good for the
Absolutely.
community.
Absolutely. We do not, our last thing we wanna do is close it for the community. That's the last thing we wanna do. Cause like was hit, if you look at our projected, again, our projected is 10 new patients a month. We saw 27 last month. New patients that weren't established with our, whether they were getting established with us or they were just being treated for the flu. That, possibly that could have been 27 people that didn't get to go see the doctor, that had to go to an ER, sit in holding, and instead we were able to see them.
What's the return rate of a new patient?
Ooh, I'd have to get that for you. Anything.
I would like to know
Yeah,
that.
I would have to get that for
It's
you.
great that we had 27 new ones, but my question would be, what would that return rate be? What are we seeing as a return rate on those new patients?
Yeah, I could report that back to you, because I do not know that right off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
that would just be interesting for me. I think I could chew it better if I knew that, hey, this is basically more for the community as opposed to, it's not financially ever going to be stable, or like financially going to zero out.
Yeah. And the thing about the RHC, the clinic, you can offset some administrative costs to that from
Right.
the hospital. And that's what we are doing, some of it. But I see what you're saying. We still need to be able to bite it a little bit more and make,
And I'd be curious, like they were talking about earlier, how much money are we able to offset, and how much money are we sending, or how much
Like
money
to
are
the
we
hospital.
receiving as we're sending things to the hospital?
okay, I can get that number for you too. We can report that next month, absolutely.
Any other discussion for item 17?
What's the staff level at the clinic?
One receptionist, a clinic LPN, and the clinic manager. That's it. And the provider, of course. Yeah.
Does the manager do the billing or just run the?
She
what is-
helps with some of the coding and the exceptions on the billing, yes. And she covers when, because she's an MA, so she can cover when one of either the receptionist is sick or the nurse is sick. She can cover the position also. And when we have two providers there, not two nurses, she can cover for the second provider.
Cause you're not, other than like maybe injections or whatever, they're not drawing labs or anything there at the clinic, they're being sent out.
If our volume gets high enough, we would, but we're not currently, no. That's one of the things we did take away because the volume was so low. There was no point in having another FTE there to draw 3 patients a day. So,
Are they doing any EKGs or anything there? at
they
the
do have an
clinic?
EKG machine, they do some. They can have the ability to do Holter monitors, if you remember that, we approved that agreement. They can do Holter monitors at the clinic.
Any PFTs or anything?
We do those at the hospital. I'd have to look at the referrals to see how many we're getting from the clinic. We can do that also.
So without that information, I think we'd be premature to act on anything, in my opinion. I think we need that information, and we need your plan, what
Okay.
you guys think moving forward.
I would just also add that I know we lease that building, but I can't remember when that lease comes up.
It's yearly, just renewed in 2023, and then it's yearly. It auto renews after that.
So we just have to look at what the termination date is for that, if you decide to go that route.
Yeah.
Is
So
it
that's just
coming
another
up?
factor.
Do we think it's coming up really short?
It's a yearly renewal. I have to look at the exact date.
Typically, they're either 60 or 90 days. I just don't have that agreement in front of me.
Mhm.
How long do you guys think it'll take you to gather the information we've asked for, as well as you guys coming up and looking at the options you might think would be available?
That, we're looking at that, 60-day process on that. But for your for y'all's information, I'll get you to it. I can start reporting that every month.
Well,
That's
I
something
just-
y'all wanna see every month.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, that's important, but I think the other part's just
The
as
plan,
important.
Yeah, what the plan is. We're looking at 60 days.
Okay. I would actually probably want that information that I asked for at that 60-day
Okay.
mark, just as opposed to getting in two separate.
So would you like to do a motion to table this to the March 25th meeting?
Would that give you sufficient time? I would make the motion to table it to the March 25th.
Because, yeah, this is all of Cohesive, I mean, all the upper management is talking about it, so.
So we got Webb motion to move it to March 25th, table it to March 25, 2025 meeting. Ford seconded. Call for the vote.
Lively,
Yes?
Ford,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
Okay, now back to item number 15. That's the renewal of the agreement.
So it's 88.63 a month and not a year?
Correct.
Because I was jealous.
No, it's
When I
88.63.
saw that.
I'm sorry, it's 88.63 a month. I saw
Okay.
that I left the per month off.
Well, I was,
Don't get too jealous.
I was very jealous. If you're getting that kind of rate. And it's the same as what we were paying last year?
Yes, sir.
How come why did you think moving that, or this other one ahead of this one? Was there a reason behind that? Corey?
What?
You had mentioned moving this item behind item 17.
Well, because if you voted item 17 to close the clinic, then you won't need to renew the agreement. So that's why.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know what action you was gonna take under 17. Didn't make sense to me to renew an agreement, then 17, you close the clinic.
If we close the clinic in 3 months,
We just gotta pay the remainder of the year of Sparklight, because they don't have a termination clause.
So,
But it's only 88.63.
can we just pay month by month?
I think it goes up significant if we do month by month, of course, like they always do.
I'd make a motion to approve the Sparklight agreement.
is there a second?
I'll second it. I mean, while you're there, you have to have it to do things.
Yeah, you can't
It's
not.
required.
Yeah, they are our primary internet source right there.
Call for the vote?
Lively,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Webb.
Yes. Item 16, discussion possible action to approve the part-time lease of the Mangum Family Clinic between the Mangum Family Clinic and the Integris Cardiovascular Physicians LLC.
This is for Dr. Gibson. She comes in twice a month, and puts it right there on the very first. It's the Wednesday, the first and third Wednesday of every month. She's been doing that for years. We get $217 per month from her, and just for her to have clinic at our
And it's
clinic.
always been 217?
Well, for the last 2 years it has.
Have we considered, I'm raising it at all?
I have, and she said, then I'll just not do my clinic here. And that was even previously. I was like, hey, we might need to go up. She was like, well, then I just won't do my clinic here anymore, and your patients have to drive to the city.
We reassessed that.
Yeah. And by the
Not
square
too long
footage she
ago,
uses,
yeah.
and the amount of hours, it's about in line.
Yeah, because we calculated based on square footage and all that last time we
Mhm.
set that. Because I think we did go up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I think it was less than that, and then we went up to the 2.7, and that's why it's 217.
It wasn't high when I was here previously. It was very cheap,
Yeah.
so they must have went up some.
'Cause
But
she
it's
used-
always based off square footage.
Because she used to be at the, it's been in there since before 2017.
Yeah.
And does she have a decent patient?
Oh, gosh, yes.
That's one of those. you just
40 to
gotta take
40 to
them
45
off.
a day.
Yeah, that's the community.
I-
In the
service.
afternoon.
Well, and I was
40 to
just
45.
asking.
Yeah.
The
She sees
217
quite a
seems
few
cheap.
patients, so it would really put our
So it's
community
a
a
benefit
little.
to have her here.
It's a benefit to
and-
have her here.
Okay,
So our people don't have to go all the way to Oklahoma City.
that's the main thing, is that it's a benefit to,
Yeah.
and she's actually productive while she's here, if she's seen that many.
She's very productive when she's here.
I would make a motion to approve it unless somebody has any more questions.
I'll second.
Call for the vote.
Lively,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
Okay, item number 17, discussion on whether the roof repair of the main regional medical center constitutes an emergency for purposes of the notice and bid requirements under the Public Competitive Bidding Act of 1974. Essentially, I've provided y'all a written opinion. In my opinion, it doesn't constitute as an emergency, but that's y'all's decision to make that declaration or not. The reason I don't think it constitutes an emergency is this is a conversation that we've been having well before 2017, ever since Black's Roofing put the roof on there. We've had issues with it. We've actually bid this project a couple times. The city has earmarked tens of thousands of dollars towards this project. At one point, it was supposed to be 50-50. So my position is I don't think that it meets the statutory definition of an emergency, and therefore I would decline to declare it as such. I understand that we have issues out there, and it's just getting worse, and we gotta get it fixed. But that's what my position would be.
Yeah, I read your.
So, I did have a question on
Yeah.
the opinion. So, say we have been discussing at each meeting,
Yeah.
and say something different happens in that same, so now it's flooding, and previously it wasn't.
Well,
Would it then been considered an emergency?
No, because that's not an unforeseen event. You
Because it
know?
already had the
Be-
leak.
Yes, and we all, like, I think I put in there, an inaction does not constitute an emergency.
Right.
Because if that did constitute an emergency, then there would never be a public bid contract, because these roads out here have, you know, that's what I use as an example. I mean, neglect, just because things get worse, doesn't mean, like, for example.
You still have to mitigate.
Yeah, I mean, one of the examples is if all the windows get blown out, where if you choose not to
Board
do
them.
anything there, I mean, of course, it's gonna get wet, water, and all the other stuff. So you have to mitigate it, and since we didn't mitigate it, and considering this was discussed in 2020, I think it was discussed in 2018, I'm sure when Kelly was there before, the issue was discussed even back then when Kevin operated it. It has been an issue.
Modified bid.
Well, I remember voting for it in the city.
Yeah, and back, I mean, in 2023, y'all actually approved a bid to start repairs on it. So I just think we're too far beyond in order to constitute an emergency at this time.
So, do we not, because it just said discussion, there's no,
Yeah.
there's no action on this?
Correct.
Okay.
So, item 19, I'm just gonna let you know, I've been talking with Fox Drescher and Berkeley. I actually talked to him today. He finally forwarded a contract to me. I forwarded it to the city manager as well as Chi. Essentially, now me and him are having an argument over whether an architect actually needs to be involved or not because of Title 59, Section 41B, or whatever that subsection is under that code that essentially states that if it's an institution and a public building, and the constructive cost is over $158,000, you have to get an architect involved. I disagree with that because there is an exception to that, meaning that if basically if the repair is not going to impact the structure, egress, mechanical, electrical, all that stuff, then you don't need an architect. So I don't think we need one, but we have to actually have our person who has jurisdiction to write a letter that says we don't need an architect. The city did opt out of the fire code, so we don't need not the fire code, but the fire marshal providing that. We've contracted with a third party, but that's still gonna cause a delay. So in my opinion, it may be faster and more efficient to just get an architect involved, which that way he can immediately start working on this.
And how quick is that process?
To get the architect,
Yeah.
it would be the same speed as if we were hired an engineer. I mean, the architect is actually
So it wouldn't speed up anything?
it wouldn't necessarily speed up anything, but it wouldn't slow anything down. But if we want to have an exemption from the architect, I think that would slow it down. Because we're dealing with the Competitive Bid Act,
Right.
there's certain requirement, bidding requirements on that it has to be done, and that's where we're kind of stuck at. And so my position is always hire an engineer or an architect to do the bid packing, to handle the inspections, to make sure we're compliant, to make sure that there's warranties, and more importantly, make sure there's plenty of liability insurance to go around in the event that the roof collapses and kills 100 people, you know? Which is worst case scenario, but it's always nice that we have deeper pockets than our own, and if that ever comes into play. So he sent me a contract, Gary Brickley did today, because he thinks an engineer can't do it, that we need an architect. It's an architect that I've worked with in the past as well. It's it's ARC okay or something like that. I printed off a contract and brought it over, which Irma does have.
But we can't vote.
So
on
we
that.
can do one of three things. Number one, since the idea was to hire an engineer tonight, since we can't do that, and since I was made aware of this today, I do think it could qualify under new business, so we could hire it today. Number two, we can schedule a special meeting to approve it. Or number three, we can make the position that since this is a city building, they can hire the architect at their next meeting. I think that's the three options that we have.
I think,
But I feel better doing it that way, and because really, the emergency declaration only saves you about 21 days, because that's what the notice and bid requires.
I would say we should go with option one. I do think this would be considered new business that you didn't foreseeably see.
No, because like I said, I felt like this fell in the exception, but my engineer does not want to do it because he thinks it doesn't fall in the exception, and I think it's gonna slow us down going that route.
So I say we go the other route then.
Than under new business. So I would recommend not taking any action on 19, and then we'll do it on that one. And then number 20 would be no action as well, since we would be doing that basically with this other company.
Is there something that we can do to mitigate any damage that would continue to happen in this time period? No, it's what it is, what it
It
is.
is what it is.
So I think we need to
I
act
mean,
quickly.
there's too many leaks, there's too much broken metal, I mean, there's to mitigate with, I mean,
They said they've got, they would patch one area, but
it would leak
it's
somewhere
one
else.
else.
Right,
Yep,
it's just that far gone.
yep, yes, sir.
Then I would say we take no action on 19 and 20. Do we need a motion for that or just?
No, just no action. Item 21 is, there's nothing to show that we need to go into executive session. Item number 22, there's nothing, so we don't need that. Is there any staff or board remarks or hospital employee remarks? Or hospital CEO remarks? Hearing none, new business.
So what's the motion we need to have them?
I gotta get that contract. And I've reviewed, it's a form contract that's put out by it's Arc Architecture LLC out of Oklahoma City. So we just need a motion to approve.
Can I look at it?
But I think, it would make me feel a lot better if we go that route. That way, like I said, by doing it this way, not only do we have their liability insurance, there's gonna be a lot of specific bonding requirements, as well as essentially tail coverage in case we have issues within the next year, because it all has to be warranted.
Now,
and
since
stuff.
the city does own the building, do they have any say-so, or do we have any burden to get with them and get their opinion on it?
Well, when I was looking into this, we have gone back and forth for a very long time.
Right.
And that's why I think in 2020, that's why the city offered to put $41,000 towards hospital roof repair. At that time, it was only gonna cost about 82 grand, and we was gonna put it in segments. So that was the agreement in 2020, and nothing ever happened, what came of that. When we bid it, I think the hospital was gonna do it basically without the city's help in 2023. Now, and Kelly can correct me if I'm wrong, but they had enough insurance adjuster to go out there.
Right.
Because originally it wasn't supposed to be an insurance job.
Right.
But, you know, Cohesive has worked really, really hard, got with an
And that was
adjuster.
my understanding at this point, that the insurance is going, the goal is to get the insurance to absorb the
Yeah.
bulk of the cost.
Correct.
Of the repairs.
So,
And I realize they operated, it's their day-to-day stuff, and that's what they're dealing with, but since the city does actually own the building, my only question is, do we have an obligation to go, hey, this is what's happening with your building?
I-
And it's being covered all legally due to,
not necessarily,
these
not necessarily an obligation, because like I said, the city, there's been several agenda items on the city side in which this was already kind of agreed to
okay,
in the past.
And if the lease is the same, it allowed us to, or at least allowed the board to be
Yes.
responsible for the
To make
maintaining of the
repairs and
building.
maintenance, and under title, and also under Title 60, Section 175,
But that,
176.
unless something had changed, but that was the original
Yeah.
lease that was put in place, is that the hospital themselves would be responsible to maintain the integrity of the building.
okay.
I have a question, so is it just the hourly rates, is there like a?
On the
minimum-
back page, there is a percentage based on the cost of the project.
Is that the 10%
No, I think it's 7% based on,
on the back page?
yeah, there should be a back page there, like a sliding scale.
Okay.
Is that travel?
That could be pretty, get up there.
Yeah.
7% of $500,000.
I think it was 28,000 is what,
Well, and it had like a range, if it's
Yeah.
from 0 to 50,000, it's 10.4%.
Let y'all know that on that, we'll make sure that expense will have to come out of the hospital settlement from the insurance and not operating expenses.
well, that's what that's basically correct. It should come off, it should be 100% insurance money, is how it should work.
Even this?
Yes, that should be covered by insurance. Because when Blair got money to cover engineering fees from their fire.
Okay.
So there should be money there from the insurance company. So it shouldn't cost the hospital anything.
So initially, they wanted me to ask initially, who's gonna be responsible for the initial payments to this guy?
That would come out of the insurance money, because it should be a structured deal. So, like, there'd be retainage and stuff like that, and so there'd be a PO ordered.
So with regard to
Yeah.
this company, that structure, that 7.5% or 7.3 or whatever, would come from the insurance.
Yeah, based on completion of the work. So
Okay.
once it's worked 10%, then they're asked for POs and stuff. I mean, it's just like any other public construction project.
But they would be responsible to ensure the bids are taken care of, they would make sure we're in line and.
They'll
legal.
handle the inspection
Okay.
and all that other stuff.
I'd make the motion to approve it. I mean, we can't continue to set on this. And there's nothing in that contract that causes you any concern?
I've read that contract or a version of that contract 100 times. It's basically the standard contract that they pull out of a form book for all architects and. I mean,
Now,
that's-
did you say somebody else had 3% fees?
The adjuster,
The adjuster.
yeah, the adjuster.
But that is well
It's all included in the same.
inclusive.
It should be.
And if it's not, then Cohesive is saying that it's gonna have to come out of,
Well,
And not the operations of the hospital.
yeah, you can't come out of operations, so.
No.
But it's gotta be fixed. We're just
Yeah.
damaging it
Right.
I know.
daily.
And that's why it hasn't been
There's really no
fixed, is everybody
options.
complains who's gonna pay for
Yeah.
it, so.
Yeah.
We just gotta take care of it.
I mean, the city has already pledged tens of thousands of dollars to do this, and it's always fallen off. And now we're coming in here saying the roof is falling in, it's flooding everywhere, everything's getting bad, we're about to get shut down over it. I mean, I don't think we're to the point that if we had fixed it 5 years ago when the money was available, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right.
Because back then, the bid amount was under $100,000. It was under the requirements of the Competitive Bid Act. So this is 5 more years of wear and
Damage.
tear on it.
sure.
So that's So I think you need to act on it and then get everything going, get the bids going, and then if it's, we can talk about payment later, we can address those as the POs come up.
Okay, so I think Ronnie
I
had
made
made
the
the motion,
motion.
so I will second it.
Call for the vote.
Lively,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
Any other new business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Lively,
Yes.
Ford,
She said yes.
It's distracting. Yes.
okay, Hopper,
Yes.
Webb.
Yes.
We are adjourned as of 6:28 PM.